So, everybody, welcome to the Hometown Pipe Dreamers podcast. This will actually be episode 3, but it's the second episode I'm recording because it's going to be airing in January. We are here with Kekoa, the Hawaiian Warrior. He's a wrestler, started in Allentown, kind of moves around the state and the country a bit, and I think you've been in Europe as well, right?
I have.
All right. Yes. So, we're going to talk to him a little bit about, what it takes to be a wrestler. So, first question is, and we start all the podcasts like this, where do you consider to be your hometown? I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be where you're living now or where you grew up, but just what do you consider to be your hometown?
My hometown would be considered Lehigh Township, Pennsylvania, specifically Danielsville, Walnut area, because that's where I grew up. I lived in Walnut for the first 7 years, and then we moved to Danielsville, but I was always in Lehigh Township. So I lived there until I graduated high school. And then once I graduated high school, it was I lived almost everywhere. I moved to Bethlehem, and then I moved back into Allentown, and then I moved in Mertztown. I lived at one point. Then I moved back to Walnut, and then I lived back in Bethlehem. I lived in Emmaus at one point, and then I moved 2 more times in Bethlehem, and now I'm up in the Poconos. So, yeah, So I've been over the the Lehigh Valley a little bit,
right?
But yeah, Lehigh Township would be my hometown.
It's funny because a lot of people who talk to the Lehigh Valley, they just kind of drift around the Lehigh Valley because Allentown's kind of centered in there. Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on in Allentown.
Yeah.
I know I have a lot of ties in Allentown as well. Mm-hmm. So it's good to stay close because, there is stuff going on there.
There's stuff going on, and what a lot of people that live in the Lehigh Valley and they haven't gotten to travel as much, they're like, "Oh, I just want to get out of the Lehigh Valley. I want to get out." And I'm like, as much as I can understand of why you would want to, but at the same time, it's the Lehigh Valley is pretty awesome because I've gotten to travel, and you get to these other parts of the country, and it's it's nice to go to, but it's the Lehigh Valley's got a lot going on, and it's always growing, and we're so close to everything. We're a couple hours from the beaches. We're not far from New York City. We're not far from DC. It's there's so much tourist things that you can go and do, and then come back home and and live in the valley. It's we're in the middle of all this stuff. So
right, yeah, absolutely.
Not that I think badly or anything of people that want to get out of the valley. It's hey, if you want to get out, this is not for you. This is not for you. But it's Lehigh Valley's pretty awesome.
There's a lot of people I know that leave and then come back.
Yeah,
Becca left and she was in Pittsburgh for a while, and now she's back in the valley again. Mm-hmm. So it is a pretty cool place. Last weekend I was just in Easton, which there's Easton, Bethlehem, and Allentown, if you're not familiar.
Yeah.
And they're all really different cities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're all lined up, and
they all got their thing to do.
They do, yeah. And we went to the Crayola factory with my daughter and my niece and nephew, and there was oh, bam, outside there's a garlic festival. Never even heard about it. I'm it was cool. We went out and walked around, and
It's the same thing in Allentown. It's now Allentown's kind of in this transition period where they're trying to be more they're trying to draw more people to their town, and now you have the PPL Center, and now there's a bunch of concerts and live events going on there, and you have a lot of high class restaurants that are going into Center City, Allentown. They've done I think the Pork Roll Fest or the Bacon Fest there.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot going on in the valley.
Valley's a pretty awesome place. So, next question is what is it that drew you to becoming a wrestler? And by wrestler, I don't know if there's a delineation here, but we're not talking about gym class wrestling. We're talking about
not amateur wrestling, collegiate wrestling. It's professional wrestling, Hulk Hogan,
right.
The Rock, John Cena, that type thing. Which is that anybody that asks me, or if they find out I'm a wrestler, they're so do you do that MMA stuff, or do you do that Hulk Hogan fake stuff? That's usually exactly how it's put every time.
Right.
But what drew me to professional wrestling. The story that my mom had told me was when I was 3, my dad put me in front of the television when I was a kid, and wrestling was on, and not even a half hour later, I guess I was beating up pillows, and
sure.
I was wrestling around, so I was immediately drawn to it for whatever was on TV, and then I just remember I don't even remember that obviously because I was 3, but my first memories of wrestling were watching like the 1993 Royal Rumble, and watching those pay-per-views that my mom would get, and we would record them on VHS, and then I would like be watching those like all the time. So what drew me to it is just whatever got embedded in my mind at 3, and then just since then I've always been a fan. And when I was growing up, I was like, yeah, I want to be a wrestler. Like, that's exactly what I want to do. And then there were some points in my life, when I was in high school, where I was like, maybe I want to be like a professional basketball player. Maybe I want to play baseball, because I was doing those things.
Sure.
And I was going to camps and like trying to get better at those things. And there's no like wrestling camp for kids,
Right.
So, but it wasn't until my junior year of high school was my first time that I actually got inside a real ring. I had found out that there was one in Center City, Allentown. This guy named Bud Carson had a pro wrestling memorabilia shop, and he had a ring in the back of his building, and you could go and like rent out the ring to like have a birthday party in, or that was mainly what he used it for. But he was also I think like the Wild Samoans were training there at the time. So I had found out about this, and I went there. And there was a group of guys that would go and like rent out the ring and like wrestle in it every other Friday. So I found out about this group. I went there, and like immediately, like when the first time I got in the real ring, it was like, all right, I'm done. Like, figured it out.
Yeah, that's
like
what you want to do.
There was a moment of for a couple of years of like, hey, I'm not sure if I still want to do this wrestling, if I want to do something else. And then as soon as I got in that ring, it was like, nope, never mind.
Right.
I was right the first time.
It's kind of like that thing in the back of your mind that's always calling to you, and then all of a sudden you're like, it lets loose. You're like, this is it. This is happening.
Yeah, because especially too, like, I was really, I really wanted to play basketball. I was decent, I would say. I wasn't good. Like, I wasn't one of the top players on the team, which was another struggle. It was like, I would have had to get a lot better, which didn't defer me away from playing basketball, but like my junior year, I was starting varsity, and then my senior year, I was having a bit of a rough year in the beginning, and this was after I had already gotten in the ring, and I stopped getting in the ring with that group of guys because high school basketball takes up all of your time. You're playing 6 days. You're either practicing or playing 6 days a week. There isn't really an off time, so I didn't have time to play around in a ring.
Right.
But like the entire time I'm at practice and I'm struggling, and like I was having a rough year in the beginning of that senior year. It was like all I was thinking about was I could be wrestling right now. And instead like I'm getting yelled at by my coach, and I'm struggling, and I'm like,
right.
Again, like you said, it was always in the back of my mind, that wrestling.
Right.
And like 5 games into the season, I was actually doing so bad in practice that I didn't even play a minute my senior year of any type of game. Like I sat the bench the first 5 games of the season, and this was after me starting varsity the previous year.
Right.
So it was like, what the hell is going on? And I took it as like a clear sign of like, you need to get in the ring. Like this isn't for you anymore.
Right.
You played basketball for like 14 years. It's time.
Right.
And that's what I did. I quit 5 games into the season. Everyone said it was probably going to be one of the biggest regrets of my life, because it was my senior year, and it's like, you should just play it out and be done with it. But I was like, no, and I've never regretted it since.
Yeah. Hey, you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's Call the Wild. So, so moving ahead, you've been wrestling for, you said, I think 10 years.
Actually 11 this month.
11 this month.
11,
hey,
yeah.
We hit the birthday, right? So, and we kind of talked when we first met about you kind of trying to get into the WWE. Is that like the major goal here, like to be a professional wrestler? And
it is one of the major goals to be, on WWE and wrestle, and that be my full-time job. But there's other things to life, and there's other things that that I want to do, and it's not a matter of that I've lost the drive to be a part of WWE, or it's just as I was maturing in the business and I started talking to these other people that have made it to WWE and then weren't with the company anymore, a lot of people were giving me the advice of like, like as much as everybody loves wrestling and that's why we do this, it's like you need your own outlet. You need to have something else outside of wrestling. And I completely agree, because as much as I love wrestling, like I will never, like as long as my body holds up, I'm going to be wrestling.
Right.
But there's definitely times where like I'll be hanging out with my buddies that are also wrestlers and they'll want to watch wrestling, and it's like, you know what, I don't really want to watch wrestling right now. Like I'd rather watch How I Met Your Mother, or I want to watch, Modern Family. Like I want to have a laugh. Like I want to enjoy these other shows.
Sure.
Or like I want to play like Madden football with my boys or something like that, or I want to watch a football game. Like I have these other outlets.
Sure.
Like I play slow pitch softball, like because I still love playing baseball.
Right.
That sport. So like as much as like I would love to be a WWE wrestler, it's like but I also one day want to have a family, and I also one day want to do more acting stuff, and you know what I mean? So it's always the goal, and if I get there, I get there, but it's like I'm not going to put all my eggs in that basket, and then if it never works out, then I lost time and opportunities to do other things. It's like, I'm kind of just going on the path of whatever happens, and if it happens, it does, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. Right. But at the same time, like, I'm never going to look back and say that my career wasn't successful because I didn't get to WWE. Like, I've gotten to be on WWE. Sure. I've gotten to wrestle. I've been booked on their events many times. And it's like, so I can always say like, well, I at least got to do it, and I got to be in magazines and ranked in the top 500 wrestlers in the world. And I've gotten to do overseas tours, and I've gotten to win titles, and I proposed to my wife in the ring, and right. It's like I've gotten to do so much in wrestling, so it's like I would never have a regret of if I didn't make it, I didn't make it. Sure. Like life goes on in a sense.
Well, you have accomplished a lot, and I was really impressed with you. And to be honest, we cast him in our last movie, and I was like kind of surprised. I'm like, this guy wants to be in our movie. He's like, I'm like, hey, whatever, but it was very impressive. And what was really interesting in that meeting is we were kind of talking to you about, what you have to do to be in the WWE. And I kind of thought like, okay, they find a guy, he looks pretty good, we'll take him in, and then we'll kind of write a character for him and stuff. But that's not the case. It's sort of, you come up with your own character and you impress them, and then that's how you make it in. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's definitely either or, because they could have an idea for you and it could take off. Right. Or they could have a bunch of not good ideas, and then they're like, well, you better come up with something because we don't know what to do with you. Right. If you hear stories about like Stone Cold Steve Austin, like when he came in, he's the one that actually came up with Stone Cold Steve Austin. WWE didn't write that. Sure. They gave him the ringmaster when he first came in, but they gave him a full list of different gimmicks and character names that they thought of, and then they were like, here, pick one. And I think he went with that for now, and then they were trying to transition out of the ringmaster, and they were still coming up with not so good ideas, and then that's when he stumbled upon the Stone Cold Steve Austin idea, and boom, he's a megastar. Right. Same thing with I don't necessarily know how The Rock became The Rock, but I mean, they were trying to have him be this all-American star and good guy, and then the fans were booing him and they hated him because he was such a good guy. Right. They wanted to hate him, and then it was also around that Attitude Era where the bad guys were the good guys in a sense also. Right. But I have heard stories of like The Rock writing down in this book of like these catchphrases that he would think of, and then he would go to other people and he's like, what do you think about this? So it's like, as much as maybe it was WWE's decision to turn him into that heel and finally be like, okay, they're booing you, so let's make you heel. Right. Maybe that was their idea, maybe it wasn't. But at the end of the day, like The Rock was coming up with all these catchphrases that were getting him over and getting him to the biggest megastar that is in acting right now. Right. Yeah. He is like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of this generation, I would say right now. He is. He was number one. I forget if it was highest paid or highest grossing. Grossing, was it grossing? Yeah. Yeah, because he's in every damn movie. He is in every movie. He's in every damn movie, and it's he's in movies that aren't even like about him. Yeah, like he's either making an appearance or he's the star of all these movies, and now he's got his own production company, and he's very versatile. He can do a lot of different things too, and he's gonna be our president. Yeah, like, you think so? I mean, he hasn't he's clearly said he's thought about running for president one day. Right. And when you're that liked. Like, there's not one person that I don't think doesn't like The Rock. Sure. And if you don't like him, it's probably because either you had a bad experience with him in the past and you just held on to it. Right. Or you're just so sick of him because he's in every movie, so then you're tired of seeing him.
Yeah.
But you don't have a negative thing to say about The Rock, especially right now. I mean, like, he does everything right.
Yeah.
Whether from, you know what I mean? Like, between being loyal to his fans and doing the good things as far as using his platform of who he is and getting more awareness for the Hurricanes or just anything.
Yeah, he's always making like little YouTube videos
Yeah.
and you know, they're always really positive.
So imagine if that kind of guy that has that much of a following runs for president. I guarantee you
That's true.
he would probably do well, you know what I mean? And then
yeah.
probably better than people that are running currently, but you know what I mean? But who am I to judge, you know what I mean?
Sure,
I'm just a guy in the Poconos.
But what I thought was, you know, most interesting about sort of this process is the fact, like, if you're an actor, you go in and they're like, you're reading for this part. You could be, you know, good guy, bad guy, you know, peripheral character, whatever. But, you know, in wrestling, it seems like you create your character. And if your character is good enough, you know, you can get in there and get noticed. And, you know, like, whereas an actor, you can't, you know, go in and go, this is the character I created. You know, I think it would fit in this movie. It's kind of cool that you guys are able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely people that are signed to WWE right now because they just did so well on the independent circuit that they're saying, like, hey, like, people, like, he has a following and, you know what I mean, he didn't need us, so why wouldn't we have him on our team?
Sure.
You know, like, my good buddy Adam Cole, like, I haven't, he's a megastar right now. I mean, he was a megastar before WWE signed him, and now he's part of the company that he's always dreamed of being with, and, you know, he did everything on his own, you know, and they brought him in and he's Adam Cole and he does everything the exact same because they said, hey, here's a winning formula. Look, he's done it on his own.
Right.
So why change him? You know, and they're doing that a lot now because before it was, well, when we sign you, you know, it seemed like they would give them a brand new persona because then it's like, we own the rights to everything that you make now because we created this for you.
Sure.
But I think they've kind of understood, like, well, they already have a following and they've done that. So if we bring them in, then the following is going to continue. If we try to change it, maybe it would be a negative response of like, hey, that's not who he is, you know, type of thing. I mean, maybe that is their mindset. Maybe it's not, you know, I'm not there, but I mean, that's the way it seems. So like they brought in CM Punk and he stayed, his name stayed CM Punk. Samoa Joe stayed the same. AJ Styles stayed the same. Adam Cole stayed the same. Bobby Fish stayed the same. Like there's a lot of guys that they're just, okay, this is who he is. We signed him.
It's a smart move.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe they're just doing that now, or maybe they're doing it with certain people that they just know, like they have the winning formula. They've been doing well, you know, because there are some guys that they've signed and then they've changed their characters, but you know, a lot of guys aren't anymore. So maybe that's, you know, maybe that's the road they're going down now.
It's pretty awesome in this sort of YouTube generation where you can project out to a lot of people. I mean, you know, 20 years ago or something, you know, in the 90s, there was no outlet to do that. You had to go to one of these big corporations or, you know, already established things and, you know, that's how you got famous. But now, I mean, you have people on YouTube commenting on video games that have millions of followers and they make a living off of, you know, saying stupid shit on YouTube, really, you know. So it's kind of awesome that we're living in that age.
Isn't it crazy? Like, there's people on YouTube that literally just play video games and then they just upload their video game stuff and that's it. That's what they do for life. Yeah. It's crazy. I got to rethink my life now.
Yeah, I know. One of the guys I work with is like trying to come up with a really good YouTube idea just to get it out there, because once you start getting you know,
a
following and people pay for the ads and all that stuff, you know, that's your money every month.
I mean, the big question is, what can you do that hasn't been done yet? Because if you're doing something that someone hasn't done yet, then it's giving you a lot easier of an opportunity to exceed. Because if you're trying to just replicate what's already been done, it's like, well, what makes you different?
And what makes you different? And it's been done for so long now. I mean, there has to be a cap at some point that, like, okay, you know, it's hard to get in anymore, because
unless you're gonna upload like cute cat videos or cute dog videos, because there's never enough of that.
Right. There's always a demand for
that, or a demand for just creating memes and GIFs. You know, if that's your job, then you know what I mean.
Right.
You might be riding a good coattail for a while.
It's well in filmmaking too. I mean, there was a guy, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. I think he's Swedish, and he did that Lights Out movie. I don't know if
I didn't see it, but I heard of it.
Yeah, he did a short film that was Lights Out, and it was 5 minutes, and freaky as hell. Like, you watch it on your phone, and you're kind of going, like...
You're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, because the lights would keep going on and off, and then this woman was seeing shit the whole time, and then she didn't see anything for a while, and then something pops out at the end, right? And he got, like, millions and millions of views on this, and got it and that's how we got a deal in Hollywood. And then they said, we want to make this a feature film, and it was... I'm terrible with names. It was the guy that produced all of the Saw movies, that created Saw 1 and all that stuff.
That guy was a genius.
Yeah, and he was the one, his company signed him on, and then he got Lights Out, and now we think he did Annabelle 2, and, and now that's how he made it. Just 5-minute short film that just took off.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so...
I still think about how I reacted the first time I watched Saw 1, and that guy just got up from the middle of the room.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Just like, no!
Yeah.
Like, I'll never forget that. Like, that's like, no, I don't even want to compare that. I was going to say something awful, but no. But yeah, like, that's like a reaction that, like, that movie was just so
It was
insane.
like The Sixth Sense. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was
You're
like,
just like, no.
Yeah. It was iconic.
Yeah. So, iconic. That's a good word.
Right. So, yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. The whole concept of, building yourself up and then getting in the WWE rather than, impressing somebody and then, like, we're going to take you in and make you a star. It's like you're already there.
You're already a star.
Yeah.
Now you're just on our team.
Right. Exactly. I thought that was really cool. So, so kind of being a wrestler, and what I've learned from you is it's part acting, part stunt work, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you think's harder?
I think the acting is definitely a lot harder. The reason being is because when you're training to be a wrestler, you're training to do the stunt work first. And what a lot of wrestling companies, or I should say wrestling schools, fail to do is they forget to teach you the acting part of it and to teach the psychology aspect of it. Because when you go out and again, like, I'm just another indie guy, but when, I'm asked from fellow wrestlers to, like, hey, can you watch my match? I just want your feedback on it. What I see 9 times out of 10 is there's some type of psychology aspect that's failed in the match to where it's like you're forgetting what's going on because you're so caught up and your mind is trained to wrestle and, like, this is what you do in wrestling, but you're forgetting the whole other aspect of it to make it look real. Like, we all know that wrestling's, staged, choreographed, whatever word you want to use.
Right.
But the whole point of wrestling is to not only give them a good show, but also to suspend their belief a little bit, because again, it's like, if we all know this is fake or if we know this is stage, it's like, why are you going to throw a punch harder than, you know what I mean? Like, because you're making it look like you're actually hurting them.
Right.
And you want to suspend those people's belief of like, I know this isn't real, but, like, that looked legit.
Right.
And, like, that's what draws people back. But again, like, going back to what I was saying, the acting part is definitely a lot harder because, to give you an easy example, I was watching a match yesterday and a guy had gotten a cane hit to his leg. And now, like, the wrestler is now beating the crap, like, his opponent was beating the crap out of his leg because it's like, okay, now he has a weak point of his body, so that guy is going to capitalize on that. But then at another point in the match, the guy that got hit in the leg was running around as if his leg was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So it's like, your mind isn't like, and that's such a simple thing of acting. It's like, hey, don't forget your leg got beat up for 5 minutes. It's gonna hurt.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so, and that happens all the time.
Sure.
And it's a very simple thing, but it happens all the time. So that's why, like, I would definitely say that the acting is a lot harder. And that's why I came to you guys when you were looking for people to film, because I want to elevate my acting ability more so that I can, because I'm at the point now where I'm in my career where I've had enough matches to where if something starts happening, I can suspend my mind to, okay, forget about everything else. What would I do in this situation? Right. How would I act? What would my emotion be? Like, what are my mannerisms? Like, would I be out of breath? Would I be fine? Would I be mad? Would I be happy? All that stuff. And it's like, if you can get that stuff down, like, that's going to elevate your ability to get booked and,
sure,
you know what I mean? To get more exposure, because anybody can do wrestling. You know what I mean? It's easy to learn that stuff, for most people. But it's hard to get people out of their shell and get their mind to that acting side.
Right.
Because if you're a shy person, it's going to be hard for you to break out and get all that emotion.
Right.
So it's definitely harder.
It's definitely, I mean, it kind of translates in filmmaking too, because if you make a movie and you don't have the technicals down, like, oh, the sound sounds weird here. Like, people are going to go, okay, I'm watching a movie.
Yep.
You don't want people to forget you're watching a movie and kind of, like you're saying, suspend belief. And,
So to give you a good example of that, I remember watching Dark Knight, and the scene where Batman jumps like 3 or 4 floors from the parking garage and lands on that van, and like the van shatters, obviously.
Yeah.
But like the sound was like very minute.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I was like, what? I was like, that van should like boom, like there should be a huge sound. I was like, it sounded like he broke like a glass or something like that.
It sounded muffled.
Yeah, I'm like, what happened there? Like, how did that get past editing to where we're like, you know what?
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah. The Foley guy didn't do it right or something.
Yeah, like something went wrong there. And even for me watching that, I'm like, well, that was dumb.
Right. But yeah, you don't want that.
You don't want that.
Yeah,
exactly.
You want to just have that seamless, flow, and that way you can get into the story and get into what's happening.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's very difficult in the ring. You probably have to learn the stunts and the choreography first, and then that has to be second nature to you before you can actually get to the acting. And
yeah, I would say so, because footwork and timing, like all that stuff is very hard to learn unless you're just a natural at it.
Right.
If you have a natural athletic ability or just a natural footwork, then obviously things will come easier to you. But yeah, it is a lot harder to translate or to think about that acting side of it while you're still working on your athletic ability. If you're trying to toggle both, then it's even harder. But yeah, it's just so many times where like you're watching a match and then something so small, like I explained earlier, happens, and then from an experienced person like myself sees that, and you're just like, how is this possible? Like,
right.
Like think, like just stop and think about the situation for a second. You know what I mean? Something is also like, it just put it into an easier aspect for you to understand. So, like a lot of people know amateur wrestling. The whole point of amateur wrestling is to get the opponent's shoulders to the ground, and once they pin them, boom, match is done, right?
Right.
That's the whole point. So there's a lot of times in pro wrestling where we hit these big moves on guys or girls, and they're down on the ground, and then they don't cover them, and then they get up and then they start celebrating or they start doing this and that. And granted, it could be a part of the storyline, but if you're playing to that, but it's like, don't forget, the whole point of this match is to win. So if the dude's on the ground or the girl's on the ground, cover them. You know what I mean? Like, go for the win.
Right.
You're trying to win.
Yeah.
But it could be the storyline aspect where if the bad guy hits this big move and then he gets up celebrating and then he ends up losing because he took too much time, then you could say that. You could put that over in the commentary, like, well, if he wasn't so cocky earlier, if he would have just focused on the match instead of yelling at the fans or blah, 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 he would have been able to get that pin there. But no, he took too much time. The good guy rolled him up, and that's how he lost the match. So It's like, if you're using that type of psychology, then yeah, that works perfectly fine. But it happens, but I know 9 times out of 10, it's not. People are just like, all right, I have to hit another move. I have to do this. I have to do that. And they're forgetting, like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to win. Cover.
And that's you bring up another point is that, if the character that you create is cocky, that would make sense to do that.
It would, yeah.
But so you also have to keep in mind your character that you created.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like, are you like a no nonsense guy? Like you get them down and you pin them quick?
Yeah, you're trying.
You know what I mean? So it's...
And I've been told that, like, so I play it. There's a heel character that I play. It's named the Warrior King, and he's a very like, I'm the king, I'm the best. Everything's about me. You're all my servants. Blah blah blah.
Right.
So there was a lot of times where like I would hit a move and I would stand up and I'd be like, "Who's your king?"
Right.
And to get that booze, and then it wasn't until Tito Santana, WWE Hall of Famer, I asked him his critique when he watched my match, and he was like, pin them first. If they kick out, then jaw jack to the crowd. He goes, again, don't forget that you're trying to win. And I was like, Perfect point.
Right.
So after that, it was like, okay, just reverse that. Don't yell at the fans first. Cover. Okay, he kicked out. Now I can yell at the fans.
Right.
That you're still trying to win.
All that is just amazing. You know that you guys do all that.
It's such small things that nobody,
right?
From a fan's aspect, you don't think about, and then you don't even realize that we're thinking about that type of stuff.
Sure.
You know, it's just crazy. There's so many small details in wrestling that like people just don't understand. People don't know that we do.
Right.
And then until you actually sit them down, you're like, okay, here's the 50 things that we're all thinking about while this match is going on.
Sure.
Try to put all those things and then cram it into 8 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever amount of time that you have. It's insane. It's a lot more difficult than people think it is.
Yeah, it really is. Now I know that they're planned, the matches, right? They're kind of choreographed beforehand, or do you guys kind of go on the fly sometimes?
A little bit of both, depending on who you're in the ring with. So if I've wrestled a guy 100 times and I know exactly what moves they do and the sequences that they do or how they do their thing, whatever, I can be like, all right, I'll see you out there. Like this is what the finish is.
Right.
Let's go out there and do it.
Right.
But then there's guys where like if I've never been in the ring with them before, like I want to know exactly what they do. I want to know who their character is, like how they're gonna portray themselves, like if they're gonna be aggressive, if they're loose, if they're comedy, like who the hell they are.
Sure.
So you kind of have to go over everything, and then after you get that first match out of the way, it's like, all right, now, you know, you can kind of feel them out a little more the next time. And also, like, you know, now that I've been doing this for 11 years, it's like, okay, I know that there's just people out there that they mean well, but they're not as experienced yet. So they might have a move that I might not be comfortable taking from them yet because I don't know how good they are.
Right.
You know, it might be a little bit dangerous. So I tend to like go out there for the first time when I'm wrestling somebody and like, all right, let's do this and this and this. You know, we'll keep it easy tonight. And then once I know, like, okay, like, they're pretty good. All right, now I trust them. We can do a little bit more next time. Basically have to feel them out that first time. So it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit choreographed, and it could be on the fly also. You know, and also, too, like, if something happens, you know, while you're out there, you need to be able to work on the fly because, you know, so, like, if, for instance, if the ending was supposed to be me jumping off the top rope onto this guy and I legit twisted my ankle and now I'm hurt.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to jump off the top rope for this move. So we're going to switch things around here a little bit. So you got to be ready for that type of stuff.
And do you guys like communicate with each other? Or
yeah. So I'm trying to think of, so a good example was the one time I was chasing my buddy and he accidentally spiked himself on the mat. So he drove his head right into the mat.
Jeez.
And he was, the lights were on, but nobody was home.
Right.
So you kind of have to guide him through, like, hey, we have to get through this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he has no idea what's going on.
Sure.
Another time I wrestled a guy, and it was our first time facing each other, so we planned out a lot of the match, and then we got out there, and he goes, brother, I forgot the whole thing. I don't know where we are. And I'm like, all right, I got it. So then you have to be ready for that type of stuff.
So sometimes you guys do go like, okay, I'm going to do this move first, then you're going to do this move, and then, you know, this and that, or...
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes, yeah.
And then sometimes you do it on the fly, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially, like, when you're a bad guy, it's a lot easier because you can dictate, like, what's going on, because 9 times out of 10, the bad guy is going to be beating up the good guy for a long time until the crowd's like, all right, we've had enough. Let's get behind this good guy. He's got to make his comeback. It's
right.
like it's like every movie.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's like Rocky.
It's like Rocky. It's like Batman. It's like every movie. Sooner or later, the
Yeah.
good guy has to come back and win,
Right.
or at least make a comeback, and then we'll see what happens.
Sure.
So, you know, during that time, it's like, yeah, the bad guy can just be like, all right, I'm gonna choke you over here. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. We'll figure it out while we're out there.
Right.
And then when it's time, he gives him that clue of like, all right, kid, it's time. Like, start coming back, you know?
Right.
And then it's like, punch, 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 punch. All right, do your moves. Here we go, you know? So that's how it goes.
That's cool, though. The whole concept is cool to me. Like, I was never a huge wrestling guy growing up. Like, I watched it a little bit here and there, but, you know, I'm learning more about this, and I'm going to your match next weekend, and I'm like, I'm excited for this. Like, you know, see all this live, and then I'll talk to you about it, like, all the behind-the-scenes stuff.
It's also cool to just know, like, you know, like, why certain things happen, like to have that backstage like knowledge. So to give you an example, like Kevin Owens and AJ Styles, I was at the pay-per-view when they faced each other for the United States title.
Okay.
And to make a long story short, the finish did not go as planned, and actually, AJ Styles lost the title to Kevin Owens, which wasn't supposed to happen. And I knew, because I was there, like, that wasn't supposed to happen, and this was what was supposed to happen.
Right.
Now, they fixed it a couple days later. They faced each other on SmackDown, and then and AJ Styles won his title back,
right.
2 days later. But, like, for me, knowing, like, okay, well, that was an accident. So now I like to go on the internet then, and I'm like, all right, I want to see what all these smart wrestling fans are going to say, like, oh, they took the title off AJ Styles because he did something backstage and they were pissed off at him, or like whatever the hell the rumor they wanted to come up. Yeah, whatever you want to come up with. Yeah. But I'm like, I know it just did not go well. Like, it was supposed to be something else. It just didn't happen. It was an accident. They'll fix it. It's the same thing with us. If something happens and it doesn't go well, we'll fix it. You know what I mean? Like, we'll get to wherever we need to go. If there's some bumps, there's some bumps.
And that's kind of common practice in the wrestling world, yeah.
So, like, a big thing that I always tell referees, because a lot of referees, they want to know what the ending is.
Right.
And I don't like telling them what the ending is, because if you know what the ending is, you're not going to be ready to count a 3 before that. So, to give you an example, if you and I are facing each other in the ring, and I'm going to hit you with the Stone Cold Stunner for the finish.
Right.
After I hit that, it's going to be 1, 2, 3. Well, if halfway into the match, I hit you with another move, and you accidentally get knocked out, and I'm covering you, the referee doesn't know, like, oh, hey, this isn't the finish.
Right.
So I know this isn't the finish. So they go 1, 2, and then they don't really go for the 3 count because they're like, I know it's not the finish.
Right.
But then you don't kick out because you're knocked unconscious. So then it just breaks the reality that we talked about earlier.
Right.
Of like, we're so invested in this, and now it's like, oh, right, that's right, it's fake. So I don't like telling referees that.
Sure.
I want you to go out there and just do your job as if you were a real referee.
Right.
And we always tell referees, if we don't listen to you, disqualify us. If we're outside for too long, because we're only supposed to be outside of the ring for 10 seconds, if we don't listen to you, disqualify us. It's our fault. We didn't listen to you.
Right.
If we don't kick out, it's our fault. We're supposed to kick out. You're just doing your job.
Right.
So that's another big thing of like, just,
Wow, there's just so much. There's so much that you guys gotta deal with in the matter of how long is like a regular match, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
It really all depends on where you go. But I mean, there could be a match that's only 5 minutes, and then there's ones that are 20, 30 minutes.
Right.
It really all depends. It depends on a lot of different things.
Sure.
But yeah, even a referee's role. I mean,
yeah.
People don't know, like, a referee is actually super important in the match. They think that he's just there to count the 3, but it's like, no, he's there, like, he's also helping us. Like, there's a lot of times where, like, I'll get slammed on the ground, and then the guy that I'm facing is a little too far away for me to communicate over something to him of, like, whatever we're going to do next. So when the referee comes over to check on me, he's like, yo, are you good? I'm like, yeah, go tell him to get on the top rope. And he goes, okay. So then he'll go over to him. He's like, he said to get on the top rope. So cool. It's like I utilize the referee that way. Or even if I'm the bad guy and I'm beating a guy up in the corner, I'm only allowed to beat him up in the corner for 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, I would get disqualified. So at 4 seconds, I back up, and the referee comes up with me, and he's like, hey, I told you to get him out of that corner. I'll disqualify you next time. I'm like, okay, ref, tell him to move out of the way. And he goes, okay. And then he goes back over, move out of the way. And then here I come running, and they move out of the way, and boom, I hit myself in the corner. And that's exactly what I wanted. You're utilizing the referee. But he's also there to, again, like, to be assertive and to play his role.
Right.
And there was a referee that I worked with yesterday that he just wasn't, he had no voice. He was not assertive. And I just gave him that advice of, like, hey, don't forget who you are. Like, you're the referee. Yell at us. You're allowed to.
That's funny. I think I always thought it was just all like these guys practice this a few times before each round, and then they go, no, it's you gotta know the moves on the fly. Sometimes.
You gotta know, or you just have to, like, remember, like, what the sequence is. So there's a lot of times where, like, I'll come up with a sequence with a guy that I'm facing, and then we'll kind of go over it a couple times in our heads of, like, okay, so we're gonna do this, and then when you get out there, then you communicate it as you go, so that you're on the same page. But then, again, then there's other times where you're just like, yeah, we'll figure it out, and then you just call it as you go.
That's cool though. That whole thing, that whole behind the scenes stuff, just really fascinates me.
I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. So I'm over time now, but I wanted to give you time to talk about your goals coming up. So you're launching an app coming up. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the app is the Territory app. The reason that I developed this app was because all social media, all any type of business related websites, etc., they're not designed for professional wrestling. They're designed for other types of use, and we just use them. Where the Territory app is designed for us, by us. So to give you an example, what a lot of wrestlers fall into, or any type of referee, manager, valet, whatever, if you have a show on Saturday, October 21st, and and that show gets canceled for whatever reason, well, now you have an open date. So you go on Facebook and you're like, hey, and a lot of people just make statuses and they'll say, hey, what shows are running October 21st? And you hope that people will, comment on it and get back to you. Or you try to find these websites that list all of these, promotions that are wrestling, and you're hoping that, there is a promotion that is near you or in somewhat driving distance. So the problem is, again, like, these apps aren't designed for us, whereas the Territory is. So if I'm a wrestler and I had a cancellation, if I go on there, I go to the booking page, I go to the event section of the app, I go to the wrestling events, I type in October 21st, and boom, all the wrestling events are right there for you. You don't have to filter out all that other crap. Because if you type in October 21st on Facebook, you're going to get, Pork Roll Festival and sewing and all this other stuff. So same thing with wrestlers. So if you want a promotion to find you, you're using Facebook, which also has your grandmother and your 12-year-old niece that has a Facebook for some damn reason. Whereas, again, the Territory app is specifically for wrestlers. So if I'm a wrestling promotion looking for a wrestler, and then I'm searching for somebody within a 200-mile radius of my event, it's like, boom, you can be found. And again, so that's why this app is so crucial to the wrestling world, because it's specifically for us. It's bringing everybody that's involved in the wrestling world, whether you're a referee, manager, valet, commentator, ring announcer, just a promoter, a booker, you make wrestling gear, you make t-shirts, whatever. If you're involved with the wrestling world, you should be on this app, because that's how this whole community is going to come together.
So check it out, guys. The Territory, it's $1.99 a month,
yes.
Correct? Okay, and that's a streamlined, basically, for anything involved with the wrestling community, whether you're a fan, whether you're involved, like you said, valet or
manager, referee, commentator, anybody,
yeah. So it's just a streamlined process for you guys without having to go through Facebook and Craigslist or whatever else you have to go through to find, whoever you need. So it's a great idea. It's a great app launching. Should be launched when this is aired. So check it out, guys.
Hope so.
Yeah. So, anything else you want to promote before we end here?
We already talked about the app, so you can download the app on the App Store. It's going to be available on all platforms, iPhone and Androids and BlackBerries, Amazon. So you can download it on those. You can check out myself on Facebook, Kekoa Mana, MANA. Instagram is @Kekoa Pro, and Twitter is @Kekoa Pro as well. You could also hit up the Territory app on Facebook, which would be the Territory app Facebook page. Also on Twitter would be @the Territory app as well. You can hit me up on there, and if you download the Territory app, then you'll be able to find me on there too, and then you can keep up with my upcoming schedule on my profile. Kekoa The Hawaiian Warrior on there, which I'm always going to keep up to date with my upcoming wrestling events and schedules, so you'll be able to find me absolutely somewhere.
He floats around the Lehigh Valley and surrounding areas, so go see him wrestle. I'm going to go see him for the first time on Saturday. I'm excited. Yes. So, Kekoa, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
No problem, and we hope to see more of you soon.
Absolutely.
All right.